to present to our group here today. So with that, I'm going to introduce Tony Petty. She is a board member of the Yakima County Development Association. She's also the regional manager, business development manager for Pacific Power in our area. And she's going to introduce our panelists.
Hi, good morning, everyone. First off, I want to thank YCDA for their coordination efforts on the subject. Businesses in Washington are really starting to ask questions regarding the clean building standard. So I think it is really important to get these conversations started to help us as businesses through the process. I also want to thank all of our panelists for taking the time to lead the conversation today. So for our businesses joining the call today, I'd like to introduce our panelists, who include Chad Gillis, who is the principal at Stillwater Energy, and he is representing Pacific Power's Clean Buildings Accelerator. Luke Howard, who is the building performance specialist for the Building Standards and Performance Unit at the Washington State Department of Commerce. We've got Annika McDonald, who is the Washington State Department of Commerce Early Adopter Incentive Program Manager. Selena Sanchez, who is the Central District Manager for Associated General Contractors of Washington. And our last panelist is Paul Warella, who is the Senior Project Engineer at Cascade Energy, representing Pacific Power's WattSmart Business Energy Efficiency Incentive Program. So with that, I think we go ahead and get started and start our first item on the agenda.
Hi, Tony. Who's going first? Is it Commerce?
I think on my agenda, I have Chad with the principal at Stillwater Energy. So Chad, if you want to, you're on mute. I'll go ahead and unmute yourself.
Nope, on the agenda, we do have a Luke going forward, talking about what the clean building standard is, giving us a little bit of background, what it requires, you know, when the requirements come into place. And he's going to talk a little bit also about agriculture, cold storage, controlled atmosphere, those kind of things.
All right. Chad, when you're ready, take it away. I think you're next on the agenda.
I think Luke goes now. Sorry, on the clean buildings. And then
Annalyn, why don't you get things going?
Okay, I'm going to share my screen. We have a short presentation that will probably cover some questions.
Annalyn, can you introduce yourself, because you're in the
I'm going to do that shortly. Hang on just a second. Let me get things. What do you see? Do you see the presenter view?
Yes.
Okay, great. Let me go through this. So good morning, all. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for having us today. This presentation will provide a brief introduction and overview of the Washington State Clean Buildings Performance Standard, including the Early Adopter Incentive Program. So during the presentation, it's going to be really quick. So if you could keep yourself muted, that'll be great. I am Annalyn Bergen. I kind of deal with the outreach and education part of the performance standard. And today we have Luke Howard, as mentioned earlier, and Annika McDonald. So this is our team. It's small and mighty, but our building but we do a lot, and our program falls under the Department of Commerce State Energy Office. Okay, this slide represents our agency's purpose, which is to strengthen communities. Commerce touches every aspect of community and economic development. So the Washington State Legislature recognizes that it is in the state's interest to maximize the full potential of energy efficiency standards, incentive programs, and codes to keep both energy costs low and to meet our greenhouse gas reduction goals, greenhouse gas emission reduction goals. As a result, the Clean Buildings Law was authorized in House Bill 1257 in 2019 legislative session. So the law is based on ASHRAE Standard 100. This is our reference standard. So Commerce has developed amendments to the standard to conform to the legislation, and these amendments can be found under WAC 194-50. So the integrated document can be downloaded from our Clean Buildings website, and only there. So Commerce has developed and continues to develop our customer support program to assist with compliance for all eligible buildings. So the law applies to existing covered commercial buildings over 50,000 square feet. Some building types are exempt, such as industrial and agricultural uses, and Luke will cover them in more detail shortly. So Commerce mailed notification letters on October 14. Commerce took a broad approach, and many smaller buildings may have been notified. Our list was generated using multiple sources, including GIS, which stands for Geographical Information System, the assessor data, OSPI, and other state-owned facility database. So please note that some of these, one of these sources may have overestimated your building size. So if it was misidentified or the size is incorrectly stated on, that's an easy fix. Just please contact us. And we received a large volume of response because of these letters. So just be patient with us. We will get to you, I promise. So what does the letter cover? So the letter covers what the building performance standard is. It gives you a list of parcels that were identified as a building or portions of a building that may be subject to the standard and possibly eligible for the early adopter incentive program. It states the compliance dates and instructions on accessing the portal and more information about the early adopter incentive program. And for any reason, if you did not receive your letter and your building is over 50,000 square feet, I'm going to post a link to the chat, and you can fill out that form and we could send a letter to you electronically. So I'm just going to move on and give the floor to Luke.
All right, thank you, Annalyn. So a building owner of a covered commercial building needs to follow the reporting and compliance requirements of the standard by the following compliance dates. The dates are all based on size of building. So any building over 220,000 square feet, compliance date of 2026, June 1st. The next batch is 90,001 to 220,000. The compliance date for those buildings is June 1st of 2027. And the last ban is buildings between 50,000 square feet and 90,000 square feet. And their compliance date is June 1st of 2028. Next slide, please. Oh, and I will mention that compliance is on a 5-year cycle. So every 5 years, building owners need to submit documentation of compliance with the Clean Building Performance Standard. So for the first group of buildings that are required to comply by 2026, their next compliant date would be 2031. So here's a flow chart that's hopefully gives you a visual indication of the basic program and the requirements. So if we look at the top left of the screen, and maybe Annalyn can follow with our cursor here. The first step is to really decide, if your building fits any of the exemptions, because it doesn't make much sense to jump into benchmarking or developing other program requirements if building is exempt. Now, I want to tell you that an exemption is a certificate of exemption. You still need to apply for it, but that would be the only requirement for you or for your building for the Clean Building Performance Standard. We're going to talk a little bit more about exemptions here in a few slides. So the first step is to really start benchmarking your building and determine a building EUI. So benchmarking means you're determining the energy use intensity per square foot of the building. So you take the total energy use, so all fuels imported into the building, minus anything exported. So if you've got on-site solar, you can deduct the solar generation from that. You would take this and divide it into, or divide your building square footage into that, that energy measurement to get your kBTUs per square foot on an annual basis. You can benchmark, and there are specific targets for to meet. So the Clean Building Performance Standard has 2 performance metrics. You can choose one or the other. One is meeting a target EUI, essentially saying your building's going to perform to a certain level. If you meet that target, you would then meet the performance metric requirement of the standard. If you can't meet that target, then you would, the alternative is the investment criteria. And I'll talk a little bit more about that. So first step is benchmarking. And also simultaneously, you can start to develop the operations and maintenance program and energy management plan required by the standard. I'm not going to go into too much detail about what that is in this conversation because of time constraints. So if you can develop an EUI for your building, and there is a target for your building type, there's over 108 different EUI targets, but there are going to be some cases where you may not be able to develop a target for the building. But if you can, then you can pursue the EUIT performance metric, as I mentioned earlier. That's the path that most people are probably going to take for compliance. If you can't develop an EUI for specific reasons, potentially your building is on a master meter with other buildings and you can't sub-meter it, so you're not going to be able to measure the EUI, or the building doesn't have a target, you're going to have to go for the alternative performance metric, which is the investment criteria. So the investment criteria is completing a ASHRAE level 2 energy audit on the building and implementing all identified energy efficiency measures from that audit in accordance with Annex X of the standard. Annex X is the investment criteria standard. So it outlines the life cycle cost analysis. So any cost-effective energy efficiency measure identified by that audit and deemed to be cost-effective by Annex X life cycle cost analysis tool would need to be implemented. And then the estimated energy savings would need to be verified in order to gain compliance. Unfortunately, let's see if I can move this. There we go. So there is a condition called conditional compliance. So if you've implemented your operations and maintenance program and energy management plan, you have done the energy audits and installed all energy efficiency measures, but you have not been able to verify the savings yet by your compliance state, you can apply for conditional compliance. You have to apply 100 days prior to that compliance date, but it gives you added time to comply with the standard. In fact, conditional compliance could last the whole 5-year cycle as long as you're constantly making improvements to the building that are cost effective. Much more nuance to that, but we have resources on our website where you can get more information. Call us, email us with those questions. Next slide, please. Okay, so this slide, we're going to make sure Jonathan gets a copy of this slideshow. This slide kind of outlines what I just spoke of in that flow chart, and it's also got live links. So you can click on those links. For example, if you want more information about the investment criteria, click on that link and it'll take you to our resources from our webpage. And there's a link on the bottom there that takes you straight to the how to comply section of our website as well, where you can find all the resources listed above. Next slide, please. So there are exemptions, like I mentioned. This is a list of the exemptions. There's quite a few. The main ones I wanted to touch on in the time we have today is there is an exemption for factory group F occupancy and high hazard group H occupancy buildings. So this is as defined by the Washington State edition of the International Building Code, as well as agricultural structures. Applications for exemption needs to be done no later than 180 days prior to the compliance date. And there are some documents that need to be submitted to verify that the building meets the requirements of exemptions. Next slide, please. Here's the definition of agricultural structure. So a structure designed and constructed to house farm implements, hay, grain, poultry, livestock, or other horticultural products, and is not a place used by the public or a place of human habitation or employment where agricultural products are processed, treated, or packaged. So if it's processed, treated, or packaged, that may fit. That could be meet the factory group F exemption, but it's fairly nuanced. I've got some other slides to show later on if we need to, if you have further detail regarding these exemptions. Monica?
Actually, me, I'm just going to go
This
through
is in
this
a
real
limbs
quick.
part,
Yep. So let me just go through this quick. This is a complicated standard. We understand that. So we have our outreach and support program, and we're here to help. So I just want to briefly go over what the Clean Buildings webpage has. So overall, so in the homepage, you'll see it has access to these different tiles. You can, if you wanted more background information about the Clean Building Standard, including the bill, how we got here, archives of stakeholder meetings, and links to RCWs and WACs, you can find that here. We also have something new where it's dedicated to frequently asked questions. It's pretty much the top 15 questions that are asked, including the answers. And on the how to comply page, you'll see that there's general steps in the compliance process. You'll find guide sheets, videos, flowcharts for compliance with the standard. In the customer support page, in the section, I'll provide you resources from Commerce and from other organizations that will support compliance with the Clean Building Standard, including links to utilities that have their own support page, and a directory of qualified persons and auditors that may be able to assist you compliance, and a page for the Early Adopter Incentive Program and our Clean Buildings portal. So the portal is a big thing. So if your building is subject to this standard, you're through the portal, you're able to view your parcel or building information, manage roles, authorize users to work on your building or profile, submit application for the incentive program or exemptions, submit compliance forms, track compliance requirements, and check the status of applications. So I'm going to hand it over to Annika.
Thanks, Annalyn. So my name is Annika McDonald once again, and my primary role is working with the incentive program. The next slide, please. The Early Adopter Incentive Program is a performance-based incentive. It's a one-time base payment of 85 cents per square foot of gross floor area that is paid by utility or utilities who are participating in the Early Adopter Incentive Program. When a building is served by more than one utility, the incentive payments are proportional to the energy use intensity reduction of the participating utilities fuel. So if you have electric and you have gas, the incentive payment would be based on the energy use intensity reduction. The incentive program is managed by Commerce, and we are in coordination with utilities and the Department of Revenue. Utilities with over 25,000 customers are required to participate in this program, and with utilities that have less than 25,000 customers, it's a voluntary program. And the early adopter incentive payments are issued to building owners by their utilities. Utilities then receive a tax credit from the Department of Revenue against their public utility tax liability. So utilities who don't pay public utility taxes, they are not eligible to participate in this program. And it's important to note that this is a state incentive, and it can be administered in addition to utility conservation incentives. So I know a lot of utilities are here to help and really can provide some assistance with meeting your goals and having some funding along the way. Next slide, please. So let's talk about eligible buildings. Buildings eligible to apply for the program must be a covered commercial building as defined by the Clean Buildings Performance Standard, or a multifamily residential building with over 50,000 square feet of floor area. The building must have a baseline weather normalized energy use intensity index, that's a WNEUI, that exceeds its applicable energy use intensity target. So it has the weather normalized EUI that is above 15 above its target per square feet per year. And the building also must be served by one electric utility, gas company, or thermal energy company participating in the early adopter incentive program. Next slide, please. So what can you do now? We have the early adopter incentive guidebook posted to the Clean Buildings webpage. It's on the incentive, it's a subpage of that on the incentive program webpage. There you will find the guidebook. It looks exactly like this picture here. If you click on the picture as you scroll onto the webpage, it will drop you into the guidelines. And there it lists the application requirements, the steps for that. If you need any assistance, please reach out to the Clean Buildings team and I would be happy to help you walk through that process. To actually apply for the incentive program, you will need to have access to Secure Access Washington account and Energy Start Portfolio Manager account. With those two pieces, you will log into the Clean Buildings portal, and there you will upload your application documents and fill out all of the details needed for applying to the program. And that concludes our piece of presentation. Thank you so much for your time.
Hi, this is Carmela with YCDA, and there's a question in the chat on whether buildings under 50K square feet are exempt.
Yeah, good question. Yeah, any building that has less than 50,000 square feet of gross floor area is the standard. They're not necessarily, I wouldn't call it exempt because we have an exemption within the standard. They just are not covered by the law, so they do not need to comply.
Thank you.
And I will note that, you know, like Annalyn said, we kind of over notified likely for building owners receiving letters. You may have a building less than 50,000 square feet. If that's the case, you can contact us and we can discuss it and adjust the records as appropriate.
I have a question. For facilities that are the less than 50% occupied, do we just work directly with Department of Commerce on that?
Yeah, what I would do is reach out to us directly and we can discuss what that means.
Oh, perfect. Okay, thank you
Yep.
very much.
Mm-hmm.
I added a couple of links to the chat. One is to our homepage, which directs you to all the things I mentioned, and a customer support forum where you can ask your specific questions, or if you need us to get a hold of you, you can request that way.
If I might ask a question, what is the city's responsibility?
Yeah, so the standard does apply to any building, whether it's publicly owned or privately owned. The only exceptions to that is federal buildings and tribal buildings.
No, I mean the responsibility for compliance.
There is no responsibility of the city other than to have their buildings comply if they are covered.
Thank you.
Yep.
So in an effort to kind of keep the meeting moving, let's go ahead and move forward. If Luke, you are finished, and go ahead and give Chad the floor. Is that, Luke, have you finished your part?
Yep.
Okay, go ahead, Chad. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Tony.
Yeah, so this is Chad Gillis, and I'll be we'll be tag teaming with my counterpart, Paul Warilla. And so we do have some slides here that we'll show that'll illustrate how Pacific Power is supporting their customers in Washington as it relates to the clean buildings requirements. And so we have some slides here, but we'll first start it off with Paul. Will kind of provide a kind of high level overview. So with that, Paul, if you can take it away.
All right, thank you, Chad. So I'm Paul Warrilla. I'm an engineer with working for Pacific Power's Watt Smart business program. And that program gets involved in the space of energy efficiency, electric energy efficiency, and has for years. So as you've just understood that when complying with the Clean Building Standard, the idea is to try to reach a target energy use intensity. And you might think of that as like a goal line. You got to get to that goal line. Pacific Power offers rebates, incentives, and these are in addition to and separate from the commerce incentives. These are rebates and incentives for doing things that can increase the energy efficiency of your building, thus getting you closer to that goal line. And so there's several different mechanisms. There's both the financial incentives and there are services. And so the incentives themselves are different kinds of things like rebates for efficient lighting and HVAC, which are offered through participating vendors in the Watt Smart program. There's quite a few vendors who can help you with that. And then also there are, say, what if you have something that is custom and needs some engineering or calculations to figure out what the proposed savings would be? That would be a combination of the technical services that we offer. So we can offer engineering services to help you figure out what you might do to your building to reduce its energy use and reach your target. And for that, this service is provided free of charge by Pacific Power with engineers such as myself, and there are several program managers involved as well. And so then incentives can be administered as well for those custom calculated projects. And then furthermore, there are also operational improvements that you can make that say you're not replacing a chiller with a heat pump. You're not doing a big expensive thing, but rather you're optimizing your systems. There are some things that there is incentives for that as well. That's what operational improvements there means. And so to finish up here, there are a couple more services in addition to those that are related to specific projects that you undertake. Another one of those would be getting your utility data, pursuant to complying with this clean standard, clean buildings. One needs to get the utility information into Portfolio Manager, and there is a service there to help with that, to get that data in there so you can establish your energy use intensity. And then finally, there's a new up and coming service called the Clean Buildings Accelerator, which Chad will be managing here. And that is the remainder of the topic here. So there you go. Take it away, Chad.
Thanks so much, Paul. And yeah, I should call out, like Paul said, so Paul and I are, the main talking people here from Pacific Power, but on the call, we do have a number of other folks that again, have been providing services to you and or your customers or constituents for many years. And so included on the line are staffers, employees from Pacific Power, Nancy Goddard and Hallie Gallinger. And then, so there goes Nancy just waving. And then also we do have William Gatchell, who like Paul and myself, hey William, thanks, are here, are basically on behalf of Pacific Power. So the Pacific Power has basically engaged us to bring additional resources and capacity to all of you, which is exciting. And definitely, yeah, Pacific Power has been following the Clean Buildings standard development and its rollout for years, as it's been being worked on by Commerce with many other stakeholder input. And again, when it came time to thinking about what your needs are and how those needs align to what Pacific Power can do, it led to the creation and launch here of the Clean Buildings Accelerator. So with that, we'll go and describe what this is about. So describing what this is. So basically, it is a program, no direct cost to you, nothing out of pocket. Design, like most programs, most resources that Paul described, typically require no cash outlay. They do require time commitment to participate, but that time I often say is an investment in yourselves because you're going to yield many benefits over time. We would then help you to determine the energy use intensity that EUI as it relates then to your energy use intensity target. That's that goal line that Paul was talking about. We'll help you then to identify and then drive operations and maintenance energy savings. You will receive tailored coaching based upon your site and organization. And so if you are at the school, we have people that know schools. If you are from a more of a commercial type of building, like an office building, we know people that know that. You name the type of building, we've got people that know those things. And last, I'd say that this process has been proven for probably 15 or so years at least. This basic kind of program designed to deliver very proven and I can say reliable results. And so again, we're very excited to bring that to you. As far as, and I should point out over here on this page, on this side of the left side of the page, we outline a lot of the requirements. I should point out the Commerce website, they pointed out a number of resources out there. They got some great things. So please do take a look. They've assembled a number of great flow charts, and they go dive deep, and they've got all kinds of great resources out there. So do take a look at them. They've done an amazing job in assembling all that. So here, though, yeah, we basically lay out a series of what the requirements are for clean buildings at a high level, some of the high level requirements, and then essentially how the program would support those. And so first of all, having that designated energy manager, and so that would need to be specified. And essentially we in the program then help provide tools and guidance to enable that person to kind of step up, whether you designate that person to be in-house or someone that you are going to work with external to your organization, but providing those resources to make them successful. Portfolio manager, so Energy Star Portfolio Manager has been used by a number of buildings in the last 15 plus years, with thousands and thousands of buildings adopting it, utilizing it to provide great resources. And again, that's built with a platform that the data platform, if you will, that that Clean Buildings is based around. We've got a lot of people, resources in our organization that have excellent knowledge, hands-on knowledge, and it can help people get comfortable, not only making some fine-tuned tweaks in how you utilize the portfolio manager, but also then, okay, how do you use this thing? How do you look at what useful information you get out of it? How do you use it to engage stakeholders and so on? So getting the most out of that tool. You have to have that energy management plan and be executing that. And so we have templates. We've got a number of other things that we can guide you on how to use that plan and not just make it a document that's like a relic, but actually an ongoing tool and something that you use again to drive action. Your operations and maintenance program, again, a lot of tools on like around the process of not only we help you to identify opportunities, but then to feed them into a process that then you can then manage and then take action on. And then lastly, like of course, critical to the entire to the law is attaining your EUI target. And so understanding what that is and then complying with that. And again, same thing I mentioned before about portfolio manager will provide very much some guided assistance to help you to understand where you are and kind of what you need to be doing to attain that level. Moving from there, so some of the program elements, like kind of how I just described what's included. This describes more like how we go about it. And so the next slide will be like a timeline, but basically we provide a series of virtual workshops. And so you don't need to be traveling around or meeting in person. We do all this virtually, but a series of workshops you participate in alongside a number of your counterparts, and that would be again Pacific Power customers, but we'd all be working together and learning different things and applying those things from those workshops. Next, we talk about virtual energy scans, and so this would be like a one-on-one session we would do with each of your organizations that participate to basically get on maybe with you. You'd be actually controlling, for example, if you've got a building control system. You would screen share that, and so you would actually, of course, be at the helm of that and controlling it. But we could look over your shoulder essentially and say, well, it looks like you've got some opportunities for changing how that building is controlled, some really easy wins. Or maybe some of those things may lead into more in-depth analysis or other kind of things that you may need to tap into. And we know Paul, when he described a couple of slides ago, the range of resources that are available from Pacific Power. This virtual energy scan can kind of maybe tee that up and then lead to him and William and a number of other people bringing these resources to bear. There's a quarterly newsletter we provide to the participants. as a part of the ongoing engagement of your participation. So we help you get set up in these virtual workshops, and then you maintain these practices over time. And that's what a lot about this, a lot of the law is about, is not only getting your building up to snuff, but then keeping at that level for a period of time so that you continue to see those positive benefits, those positive cost savings or carbon, other kind of benefits that are important to you. But these quarterly resources will help you kind of keep that focus over time. We do provide coaching and peer learning. So, we do the virtual workshops, which convene everybody, which are great because then you're hearing from other people. But then the coaching, we understand each of your organizations are unique, your buildings are unique. And so we do some essentially one-on-one coaching with you to kind of understand what your specific challenges are, meet you where you are, and then help you work on a path forward from that. And then lastly, talked before about Energy Star Portfolio Manager. Our team has been utilizing that as an energy savings platform for a number of years. We've got direct engagement with US EPA, who's the people that developed and maintain the Energy Star Portfolio Manager. And so we've really worked with them over the years to really refine what it is you can do with this platform and how do you make sure you get the most out of it. So the timeline, just seeing this now kind of shown over time, we do this thing called a coffee chat at the very beginning, just to let you know what this is all about. And so we would be scheduling these here relatively soon in the Yakima area. And so look for more information coming about that. I may schedule a couple of them, but you can just kind of come in and hear what it's all about alongside again some of your other peers. And again, how a lot of the resources here align to the requirements. These next four items just illustrate the key workshops we would cover within the program, and it'd be done. We call it in a sprint, so a 4-month sprint. So you're going to work quickly, and so it's not a long heavy duration. It's going to be just an intensive period where you get a lot of things done, get a lot of the practices in place, and then you move into this ongoing engagement period here over time, where then you're just maintaining, and so continuing to refine and apply new things. Address new twists and things that come up as you're tackling, utilizing the O&M practices, utilizing your energy management plan over time to yield great results. So then that's really the core part of it. If you are interested, definitely engaging Pacific Power. Again, back to Paul's original slide, there's a number of resources available. So whether you want to participate in the program, the accelerator program, that's wonderful, or if you feel you've got a lot of it, either through in-house capacity and capabilities, or through contracted relationships that you think you can tackle it, that's great. You still may, again, though, want to tap into Pacific Power's incentives and other services that are available. So here is the phone number that you can give a call, and then they can then direct you to the different things, different resources available. Of course, also the Watt Smart Business Program, bwattsmart.com. Can again also describes a lot of these things together. But yeah, definitely as you're thinking about that, you can definitely work with Pacific Power. If you are thinking about accelerator, I would suggest discussing that with your organization. Understand that we'll meet you where you are and work on your own pathway forward. Again, definitely participation in the program is really based upon will you participate, will you show up, and then will you take action. But if you can do those two things, and of course, if you're at the threshold where the clean buildings requirements apply to you, then this could be a good fit for you. So with that, I thank you all for your time, and we can give any immediate questions. Oh, great. And actually just see Nancy put it in the chat. But you can also email Pacific Power at wattsmartbusiness@pacificpower.net.
There are a couple more questions that came in through the chat. The first is, will the law later extend to buildings under 50,000 square feet?
In the chat, I linked House Bill 1774 and SB 5722, which proposes kind of an altered expansion for this. It's not as quite as intense as I think it's mainly for benchmarking and with the addition of an O&M and energy management plan. Is that correct, Luke? But there's a link in the website. You can follow it. You can make your comments if you're that way, and you could provide the contact with your thoughts about it as well.
Okay, so I guess on to our next speaker, where we can still have Chad chime in as well on what service providers are available to assist. But we'll go ahead and have Selena Sanchez step in, and Chad, you can fill in the blanks as she speaks or right after if there's anything that you would like to add that's in addition to what you have already discussed. So Selena, if you want to take the floor.
Yes, hi everyone. Good morning. For specific service providers, I think where we will come in is this kind of falls down into the responsibility of the owner, but with our organization and members, general contractors or specialty contractors on this energy efficient supplies will have to be up to date on the standard and necessarily receive the training to become an auditor for these systems. So they would be the ones assisting with either renovation or new construction of these buildings. As far as other service providers, I think Shad, you will probably have the list of those actual providers. We know that some of our members are already auditors of these systems and can assist the owners on making that transition and making their buildings meet that requirement.
Yeah, and so like Selena said, so again, if you're thinking about the law, and again, we got to get above that threshold or below, got to surpass it, right? You got to be within that. You may already have a relationship with a contractor, someone that's helped you for years, maybe to install or to maintain some of your HVAC equipment, for example, and those organizations could be members of the AGCW, like Selena said. And so those could be the people you're going to go to people. Like she also said, there are some roles that are called out within the law, and there's again specified, and definitely Luke could describe those, but there's basically qualified persons and there's qualified energy auditors. There's certain things that a credentialed, I'll say credentialed person, that's maybe a little, not exactly the right term, but those are again specified, those requirements are specified on the Commerce page about what kind of person they need to have. And so I guess just understanding that those could be internal resources. You could have someone internally that does that. You could have an external resource, again, like a member of AGCW, that as long as they would need to have those credentials. And then, like we said too, we're describing a few things. So again, like internal resources you may have using like an equipment contractor, or then also using someone like when Paul laid out the services that are available through the utility program, that some of those things going to work within that orbit as well. So all of these things you may use all of you will. Some internal capacity you have an equipment focused contractor as well as a delivery contractor. Some of this is part of a program like Pacific Power. Luke, or actually anyone from Commerce, is there anything else you could add to kind of how we're describing that orbit of resources?
Well, I can speak a little bit about there's two roles within the Clean Building Performance Standard that requires credentialed personnel. As you stated, Chad, that would be the qualified person and the qualified energy auditor. Thank you, Anlin. So this is a resource available on our website. It kind of outlines all the different roles within the standard and their roles and responsibilities. The qualified energy auditor, as you can see here, is a licensed professional architect or engineer or an energy auditor, assessor, analyst, or certified by ASHRAE, or the Association of Energy Engineers. So there's certain qualifications that the energy auditor needs. Same with qualified person. So qualified person, really, energy auditor, we know what they do. They audit buildings to determine potential energy efficiency measures. The qualified person is the person that's kind of overseeing the whole project and compliance documentation. They're the ones signing the documents that are sent to Commerce to document compliance. So they're ultimately reviewing everything. And again, this is a qualified person, as an architect or engineer. There could also be a certified energy manager. You can see there what the specific qualifications are. So not only is this information available within this slide deck on our website, but within the standard itself, you can look in the definitions for all these different roles, and they speak of the qualifications required. And the nice thing about that document that Adeline just had up is it kind of condenses all the responsibilities of those folks and those roles, which kind of helps you give a good picture of what the responsibilities are.
And Adeline, I would just, only other thing I would add to this discussion about resources that, Selena and I were kind of teeing up, is that some of these, like some of the requirements within some of these credentials do have like a time component that's not really clear here if you don't know about it. For example, if you wanted to become a BOC level 2, right where their mouse cursor is, they usually I think it requires about 2 years of work to get to that. There's some other things here. For example, being a CEM can require 4 to 5 years of experience. So I guess what I'm getting to is there's some time components here for the credentials and other time components to the law itself. I envision the flow chart that Luke and team were showing earlier. That I would suggest a kind of a healthy, don't say, hey, 2026, that's great. I can take a look at this in 2025 then. I can wait until then. Some of these things you might want to start thinking about and organizing yourself and imagining what you need, or having some conversations with some resources out there to make a game plan. And maybe you don't need to do a whole lot of things between now and then, but I would suggest kind of understanding that, doing that exploration of where you are sooner than later.
I also want to add a comment, I think, to that, where AGC comes in and assisting the members to learning about this information and getting themselves familiar with these requirements on the instance that the owner does decide to have them be or participate in one of these roles, to assure that these systems are being replaced and are meeting the standard. So that's part of our to-do list to introduce to our members, and in particular to the Central District, to get them also this information and understand who is currently holding the certifications, and maybe create a list to assist those businesses in the region so they can have it to go contractor, specialty contractor they can go to.
There is one more question in the chat regarding definition of an ag building. Is there somebody that can provide some additional clarity on what that definition looks like?
Yeah, the definition, as I read it, is how it is stated in the Clean Buildings Performance Standard. As far as interpreting what all that means, feel free to reach out to me with your specific building or specific question. And I will assist in identifying and making sure that we're meeting the requirements of this exception. There's going to be hundreds of different nuanced buildings within the ag sector, and we want to make sure we're identifying them correctly.
So I guess just a quick question. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
My name is Jeff Perald. So on the ag sector, it looks to me like basically only buildings that are used for just housing tractors or whatever are exempt, and pretty much anything involved with processing would not be exempt and would have to be audited for this program.
Yeah, and they may, you might want to look at the exemption for factory group F occupancy classifications. So depending on what the processing is, it may fit that occupancy classification. And occupancy classifications are according to the Washington edition of the International Building Code. Chapter 3 has all the details. You can get a digital copy of that. In fact, the slideshow that we're going to submit to Jonathan to share with all you has links to that website, so you can look up and try to identify the building. If it's a fairly new building, your building department would have clearly identified the occupancy classification through the permitting process. So it may be on the plans, it may be on your occupancy permit, and they likely have record of it at the office.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
We do want to make sure to be conscious of everybody's time this morning. Tony or any of the other presenters, are there any closing comments? As a side note, we will be providing copies of the decks as well as some of the links and those items, but any additional closing items?
Chad or Nancy or Annika, do you guys have anything additional you would like to talk about on what programs are available, or anything else that utility providers can help with?
Yeah, so from Pacific Power, again, on behalf of Nancy, Hallie, Paul, William, the whole Pacific Power, and there's many people, of course, behind all of us that help bring resources to all of you. We just want to make this as easy as possible. Reach out by email, go to the website, call that number again, those that are available to you, and we can bring some Pacific Power resources to bear. And however, again, meet you where you are and help you out. So thank you.
Anything additional from any of our folks from the Department of Commerce?
So on behalf of Commerce, we are here to help. We have our buildings at Commerce email address. That's a central email inbox. It actually reaches all of us on the team. And if you have any questions, please reach out to us via email. We are here to help as well. We have our webpage. Annalyn has developed wonderful resources. Luke has amazing technical support and assistance he can provide to you. And if you have any questions regarding the incentive program and applying, I would be happy to walk through that with you.
So again, I want to stress there are some great links in the chat for the Department of Commerce as well as Pacific Power. There is some contact information on those links and the website, so feel free to reach out. Do we have any additional questions that could be answered quickly, or is there anything else that anybody else wants to add? Sounds like it's pretty quiet out there. So if everybody is good, Chad, is there anything else that you want to add before we sign off?
No, thank you all for your time.
Thank you very much for everyone for coming.
Everybody, and yeah, glad we could help and talk to everybody soon.
Thank you, Tony. Thank you, Chad. Thank you, Luke, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.